And welcome back. This is your man Warrior. This is another patron roster review. This is Chill1982 from Rebels Legion, and he's a Dolphin, been playing for a couple of years, and he wants to know also about the next couple of Zetas. He wants to know about Grand Arena, kind of the best fleet, some of the key ships that he should be kind of looking at, focused on, and then also some territory war teams. We're going to talk about 10 territory war teams. We're going to talk about 12 characters he should be kind of hyper focused on or should be in his favorites. And in those 12 characters, we're also going to talk about 8 Zeta potentials that he could do. So let's get right into it. We're going to move into key ships. Now, for key ships, there's a couple of ships that are kind of new to the game, but are definitely going to be key for future potential events, and that is IG-2000. Keep that one on the side. I wouldn't develop, the ship a bunch. Just worry about getting the star count on this ship. Go ahead and farm it for the stars and continue to develop Houndstooth as well. Now, we all know Phantom 2 is a phenomenal ship, so continue to develop Phantom 2 because you've got, great development on that ship already. And then obviously the Ghost is paired with Phantom 2. There's so much synergy going on between those two. You definitely want to finish out the Ghost. Now, some of the other ships that you should be considering aside from the Geos, because obviously the Geos are definitely kind of go-to ships that everybody should have. Everybody listening to this right now should have all 3 of their Geos maxed, and if not, they should drop everything and get their Geos maxed. Those 3 ships are insanely amazing, great for PvE, going to help you with all of forms of the game as far as territory wars, battles, or ships arena, everything. And then you can kind of start to expand into others like Xanadu Blood and Anakin's ETA Starfighter. So that ship as well is really, really good. The ETA is phenomenal. Now, that ETA-2 is not farmable yet, but you could start to develop the ship and the character, and then when it becomes farmable, you could take it the rest of the way up once you start getting the stars. But Xanadu's Blood is farmable, just like the IG-2000, so definitely want to focus on that. And then also, you have Slave 1 at 4 stars. Not really sure after 2 years why it's only 4 stars. It's a relatively easy ship to get, and you've got the crew member, obviously Boba Fett, at gear 12. So this is a phenomenal ship, but at this point, it's going to be a really, really important ship for the Millennium Falcon, the new one that's potentially coming out. And so with that one and IG-2000 and XB and Houndstooth, you've got a lot of farming for stars. We're going to assume that new ship is going to unlock at 5 stars, so you're going to need them all at 5 stars to get the ship at least. At least that's what we're thinking. Now, you have a really great looking roster after 2 years, almost 3 million GP. That's what being a little bit of a Dolphin does for you. It gets you a little bit of an edge on focus. As long as you're focused on the right characters, you're going to grow pretty quickly and do really well, and you don't even have to spend that much money to get going. Now, we're going to go into territory wars, kind of some of the top 10 teams. These teams can be used on offense, defense, but we're going to go through kind of some of the more popular teams, so we can talk about what in each faction should be put into your favorites. We'll talk about the character that you should be working on, and then what potential Zetas you could be looking at in the future. And then at the end, we'll review kind of the top 12 characters you should be gearing, and then the top 8 Zetas that you should be looking at. All right, it's no secret for territory wars, bounty hunters are amazing. Bosk, Lead, Boba Fett, Dengar, Greedo, Cad Bane, IG-88, all of that looks great. 2 of those guys, IG-88 and Cad Bane, have ships, so continued development of them would not hurt you at all, but Greedo is pretty amazing. However, I highly recommend, now that he's farmable, Jango Fett, and you're going to be getting him anyway because you're farming Houndstooth, and Houndstooth and Jango Fett are on the same node, and so get Jango Fett up. But what's more important is getting Jango Fett up so that way you can make 2 bounty hunter teams, one for offense, one for defense, Or you can bolster your one bounty hunter team with Jango Fett, who's kind of like having another Boba Fett. They both can do kind of an execute style move where they can't, the enemy can't come back to life after dying. So super important. And there's up to 2 Zetas on Jango Fett. However, of the critical Zetas to talk about, I would say between both Jango Fett's Zetas, I would say his leadership is less important because you have Bosk's leadership, but then his leadership could become one that you eventually work into. But for essential Zeta, for one of the top 8 Zetas for you, it would be once you get Jango Fett developed, getting his unique done. Now, your first order look really good. They're solid. The whole team looks pretty awesome. But for where you're at now in development and you're starting to go really in game and you're going into some, against some really good guilds, you're going to notice that there needs to be a little more durability for your first order to survive on offense. Or if you put them on defense, it's nice to have dual tanks. And so First Order Stormtrooper is going to be kind of a big deal with Kylo Ren unmasked. So, and that is one of them that you have not developed much. He's 3 stars, gear 4 or whatever. And so First Order Stormtrooper would be the one First Order that I would slap into my favorites and I would start to develop. Now, First Order Stormtrooper is one of those 8 Zetas I was talking about, but it would be the last in the priority list of all 8 Zetas that we're going to discuss. But it is one of the Zetas in the top 8 as far as making these teams or bolstering these teams for territory wars. So far, your Jedi look awesome. Obviously, you're going to want to get Revan, and you'll have some Zeta need for Revan. But for now, your Jedi, especially Bastila-led teams, look really, really great. As far as a scoundrel team, there's 3 scoundrels in here that you're going to want to focus on. Actually, there's 4 total that I want to talk about, but 3 specifically for the scoundrels. And that is Kira, L3, L337, Infus Nest, and then Mission and Zalbar. So you've got a lot to do with Mission, Zalbar, Vandor, L3, Kira, Infus. There's 6 of them that you're going to want to really develop out. So pretty crazy because Vandor is only 3 stars at level 1. Really crazy. Vandor is one of the best tanks in the game. He's in the top 5 best tanks in the game very easily. An amazing tank, just like L3 is an amazing tank. Zalbar is an amazing tank. These guys are all built for Grand Arena, territory wars. Like this is what they were engineered for. So very, very important. So you've got a lot of scoundrels you're going to want to look at, about 6, with a few of them coming out of Old Republic and a few of them coming out of Scoundrels, but they kind of have a crossover or a mishmash. So Vandor, definitely you're going to want to eventually Zeta him, L3 and Kira, but you've got to get Kira, L3 and Vandor developed. So put them in your favorites and then start to develop them. Now, as far as Old Republic, we just talked about that faction as well. Mission and Zalbar, you've got them 7 stars. Gear 6, you're going to want to take both of them up, and eventually both of them are going to be worth a Zeta, but those do not make the top 8 for you, but Vandor does. And so you've really got your work cut out for you for this guy. You've got to get him leveled up, geared up, starred up, and then put a Zeta on him because he's a pretty big priority. In fact, he's a top 3 Zeta priority for you. Now, as far as Sith, you can make multiple teams. You've got a lot of really great characters and a lot of really great Zetas. You've even got Darth Maul for defense and Emperor Palpatine for offense. You got Scion and Nihilus, Savage. Sith Assassin even looks almost pretty good, and Sith Trooper pretty good. But Bastila Shan Fallen is one of the best support Sith in the game, if not the best support Sith in the game. So you don't even need her Zeta, and you don't even need her past 4 stars for the purposes of PvP. You just want to take her up to gear 11. She's super important. She should be one of the 12 characters you put into your favorites to really, really work. She's super important right now. Nothing much to do here. Your resistance look really, really well. If you want to get Amelin Holdo a little bit higher so you can kind of split apart and do 2 teams for resistance, I would encourage it. Amelin Holdo has an AoE daze, which is super, super important, especially when you're dealing with a lot of the defensive teams that you're going to be facing in Grand Arena and Territory Wars. If you can daze the whole lot of them, it's going to prevent a bunch of them from countering and regenerating a bunch of their health and protection that often occurs with those defensive teams. So I use Amelin Holdo a lot, and I think that you're at that point in stage in development where that's a character, if you were going to focus on anyone in resistance, that would be the one that I would focus on. Now, as far as Rebels, again, it looks really good, but I noticed you got a 7-star Chewbacca, so congrats to that. And you've got him Gear 9, almost Gear 10, so my guess is he is in favorites right now, which he should be in your top 12 favorite characters. And double Zeta that bad boy, double Zeta him. Now, his loyal friend would be your first Zeta on him, and he is a top priority. At least loyal friend is going to be a top priority Zeta. But Commander Luke, you do not have Rebel Maneuvers Zeta, and that is a solid leadership Zeta that affects the whole team of 5 or team of 3. So definitely Commander Luke Skywalker leadership is going to be the #1 Zeta right now. If you are sitting on a Zeta that I would put it right on CLS lead, and then the next one on Chewbacca for his loyal friend. As far as your Night Sisters, they look really good. The only one that I would suggest you continue to develop and is really good for PvP is actually Spirit. Get the 7th star, take her up to Gear 11 at a minimum like your other ones, and you're going to find she's very, very, very good. She's hard to hit. She hits really hard. She dispels. She's got a lot of armor penetration, so she does high damage against whatever target, but the dispel and the stun and the ability to have foresight all the time up makes her really, really good. Obviously for raids, Talia's a little better, but Night Sister Spirit has her place in PvP, and there's a lot of teams you can beat on offense with Night Sisters, provided you have Spirit, because she brings a second dispeller to the team, and that is really critical, having multiple dispellers. And I would make Night Sister Spirit part of those 12 characters that I'm talking about that you should develop. Now, when I looked through your whole roster, I saw Hermit Yoda was in there, 7 stars, but I didn't see a 5-star Wampa, and I'm not sure if you are working towards a Wampa or not, but because Wampa's not in your inventory and he is like Nest, one of the better standalone characters in the entire game, and he, in my opinion, is better than Nest, then I would highly recommend that you work on and start to focus really heavily on getting Wampa, because there's a lot of teams with like Rex Wampa that you can counter with because of Rex and Wampa combination. And so your Rex is like Gear 8, get him leveled up, but also focus on that Wampa. Now, I did mention Old Republic earlier, and I'm going to just come back to Old Republic, but the farmable Old Republic, you have all 7 stars, so good for you. You should be able to get Revan next time around. Zalbar and Mission will eventually become priority for Zeta, but not yet. Not in your top 8 Zeta list for you. But T3, just get up a little higher in gear, and then get Mission and Zalbar higher geared. Take them all the way up. They're an amazing duo, one of the better duos in the entire game. So highly recommend you get both of those guys up. Eventually, when Cartho Nassi becomes farmable, you'll want to take Cartho Nassi to 7 stars and Zeta his leadership. But that is a long time in the future, like 3 to 6 months from now. So just keep it on the mind, in the back burner. But Old Republic, again, Mission and Zalbar, continue to take them up to a minimum of Gear 10, preferably all the way up to Gear 12, because that is an amazing combination for underneath Cartho Nassi or underneath Revan or underneath Kira lead. There's so many options with these guys. All right, so we talked about 12 different characters. We talked about Jango Fett, having him in your favorites. Put First Order Stormtrooper in your favorites. Put Kira, L3, Vandor, Chewbacca in your favorites. Put Bastila Fallen in your favorites. Put Chewie in your favorites. Put Wampa and Spirit in your favorites. Put Nest in your favorites, and put Mission and Zalbar in your favorites. Those 12 characters are going to be extremely impactful in the entire game. That's a couple of rows. You should be able to chew through those couple of rows over the next 3 months or so if you're hyper focused and putting all of your earned gear towards those 6. And they're going to really make all of those offensive and defensive territory war teams pop. And then also, as far as the Zetas, CLS lead is going to be the number one most important, and then Nest and Vandor are going to be your next 2 most important, and that is because you already have Nest semi-developed, and she's really, really great, and Vandor is just that important to have his Zeta. Also remember, Chewie had 2 Zetas I recommend, but 1, the Loyal Friend, you should be doing right away, and Jango had 2 I recommended, but I definitely recommend his Unique. And then as the end, or the last Zeta possible, I would think about First Order Stormtrooper. But Chewie's Loyal Friend, CLS, Vandor, Nest, those are your top 4 Zetas. These teams are amazing. For territory wars, you can use bounty hunters on defense or offense, but I suggest defense. First Order on defense or offense, but I suggest defense. Jedi, I suggest defense, but it can be used on both. Your Scoundrel team with Kira and L3 and Vandor, when built, I would leave it on defense. Your Sith team, I would actually use it for an offensive team if you're using your higher end Sith, and then for your other Sith following Maul, I would put like a Maul lead under on defense. And for offense, use your JTR, your Jedi Training Ray teams, and your CLS team, and your Rex Wampa combo once you get Wampa, and your Night Sisters on offense, so you could strategically chew through those very teams I just talked about on defense. But you got a lot of options, and most of these teams can be placed on offense or defense, and you can make small tweaks. Well, I hope this helps you chill figuring out which territory war teams were best for you, and then what fleet you should be focused on, what key ships you should be focused on, but also the next couple of Zetas. Anyone watching this, if you have anything to add to my assessment, leave them in the comments down below. And as always, keep your gaming on. Warrior out.